This week's episode of the ArtTactic Podcast is brought to you by ArtTactic.com, where you can now find our latest report, the Sotheby's Insight Report Women Artists. We're proud to present this latest report in an ongoing series with Sotheby's, designed to empower collectors by offering a deeper understanding of the market forces shaping today's fine art landscape. This report provides timely, data-driven insights drawn from public auction results across Sotheby's, Christie's, and Phillips, alongside Sotheby's proprietary bidder data. And most importantly of all, the report's available for free right now by visiting arttactic.com. Thanks for listening to the Art Tactic Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Green. It was great seeing so many of you last week in Switzerland at Art Basel. It really is my favorite fair of the year. A time when the art world takes over a charming city like Basel. You just don't see that at other fairs. And you get to meet and talk with colleagues, collectors, dealers, not just at the fair itself, but you have so many impromptu conversations on the sidewalk, on the tram, at the local restaurants and museums. It's really an incredibly unique experience. As for the fair itself, I thought the quality of work brought by exhibitors was very strong, something you would typically expect from a Basel. In regard to the mood, I felt it was more upbeat than anticipated, especially compared to the perhaps slower New York fairs we saw in May. Some galleries reported really strong sales from the fair. Others, from my conversations with them, sales seemed to be a little bit more modest. I think in today's selective market, success, it really comes down to quality and pricing. Most collectors, they've slowed down their pace of acquisitions to a degree over the past year, but there is still really strong demand for standout works by really important artists, especially those that are not perceived as overpriced. I think works by those artists tended to sell really quickly at the fair with a lot of demand, while other works may have lingered for a while or even gone unsold. At the fair, by far the most talked about aspect was the lighter presence of American collectors compared to previous years. I think many assume they're opting to attend Basel Paris instead. At the end of the day, how can a place like Basel compare to a place like Paris, where it offers world-class dining, hotel accommodations, and there's more to the city than beyond the art? Anecdotally, one of the sort of running jokes I had of the week, or at least one of the running observations in my mind, was in so many conversations I had, naturally the first or second question was, how long are you staying in Basel? Or really, when are you leaving? When are you getting out of here? In Paris, on the other hand, honestly, Americans tend to stick around longer, enjoy the city. I know some who stay a few extra days after the fair to enjoy different aspects of Paris. So it's night and day in that comparison. And as Paris continues to develop, perhaps Basel, Switzerland, Basel, Paris, Basel, Miami, perhaps they'll become more regional in character because there are more Basels around the world now. We'll just have to see how that aspect of these fairs plays out. But in this week's episode of the podcast, we recap the fair even further with Vivienne Chow, London correspondent and co-founder of the Asia Pivot at Artnet News. Vivienne wrote several articles recapping different aspects of the fair. Hope you enjoy our conversation. Thanks so much for listening. Vivienne, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
Absolutely. Well, I know you had a busy last week reporting both from Zurich and Basel, so we appreciate you taking a little bit of time to help us recap this year's edition of the fair. So to start off, tell us what the overall mood of the fair was like this year. From your conversations on the ground, how did dealers feel about the pace and strength of sales, maybe compared to their expectations headed into the fair?
My week started in Zurich with the Zurich Art Weekend, and it was really, really hot over there. And it felt like somehow the weather or the heat. I felt personally that I think it played a part in terms of like, it lightened people's mood. People all wanted to like maybe go for a swim in the lake in Zurich, and of course afterwards in Basel. And also people are also very I think I felt like they were more like open and more in a kind of like a party mood. So I felt the mood was actually overall quite good. And even at the fairs, it felt buzzy. I noticed I think many new faces and noticeably younger crowd. And I think that was a positive sign. And some dealers at Art Basel, however, told me that sales were slow. People were picky, and which is understandable. And some dealers brought works of like lesser expensive works in the hope of selling them, like selling more. And so one of the stories I did for Artnet News was my art bargain hunt. Five works under $5,000. And so I listed out five, I highlighted five works. But in fact, I found a lot more works of that price range that I didn't write about. So I think that's a sign to a certain extent about like how the market is going or where the market is at the moment. And some dealers at Leicester, on the other hand, said they were very happy this year. And well, I didn't speak to all of them, of course, but at least like the people I spoke to, they said this year felt much better than last year because of a new layout. And they felt that this kind of layout creates a lot more movement and people are more willing to walk around and to discover, that encourage them to discover rather than, like a circle in the previous years.
So something I noticed at the fair this year was that there were a lot of observations by galleries, by dealers, by collectors about who was there and who wasn't there. For example, did American collectors show up? Did Chinese collectors show up? To me, that was interesting that there was so much focus about who was present and who wasn't. I had a similar experience last year at Frieze London, and I think it all really ties into Art Basel Paris and just how will these art fairs overall evolve and what will their identities be and who will attend them in the future. I think we're in this interesting period with art fairs where there is a lot of flux and changes that might be happening in terms of how the fairs position themselves relative to others on the art calendar. But one area that I thought was very interesting that you focused on in an article for Artnet News was about young collectors attending the fair. And specifically, you explored how this younger generation is actually taking a slower, more intentional approach to collecting. Can you share more about what you're seeing here with this group of collectors and how did that play out at Art Basel this year?
The young collectors I spoke to for my story, I think it's quite interesting. It felt like they have this. I think the community spirit is important. So it's not just about being in the art world and you're being served like champagne and all the glamour and stuff. It's not something that they look for, or at least are not their priority. It felt like they wanted to connect with people who are like-minded and people who share like similar interest, and they want intellectual stimulation. They want to have conversation and like someone they can discuss things with. And so in that sense, so they will look for galleries, maybe galleries that they are close, like they are like neighboring galleries, like to start with, like for example, like the collector I met in Zurich. So so he naturally would be close to like galleries in Zurich and also like European galleries, and to champion like programs and artists that he believe in, which I think is but it's very healthy, and they're also cautious about the pricing, and they're cautious about um so they don't rush into buying art. So they will discover this artist, and if the works they don't feel right, and they don't buy, but they would wait until the right work comes up. So they are not flippers, obviously. They're not in a rush to buy and sell, but they want to have something meaningful in their collection. So I feel that this maybe this time, I mean, after what we have been through the past few years, maybe things are getting back on the right track.
Well, that's really interesting to hear. And I honestly have to say, I think whether you're a young collector or an experienced collector, that's a great way to collect, to take your time, to make really informed decisions and build a collection that way. So another group of collectors that received a lot of attention at this year's fair were American collectors, but not because they were there, because of their lack of presence. I had a lot of conversations with galleries about the noticeable lack of Americans at this year's edition. And I have to say, American collectors really haven't been attending the fair as regularly as they were in the past ever since COVID. So I think it's slowly each year declined in terms of the number of Americans attending. But I'm curious your take on that. Do you think it's because more Americans will be choosing to go to Paris instead, or what did you take from this trend?
I have a feeling that maybe it's also similar to the situation of collectors based in Asia. I think realistically, um, okay, there are more Art Basels in every part of the world, and there is also like Art Basel Paris, and then you have another the Qatar coming up. So and asking collectors to fly long haul and spend a week in Basel, it can be quite demanding in terms of travel and like the amount of energy required. So I think with that in mind, I think people are more picky in terms of like which Basel to go to. And I guess for Americans, there's at Basel Miami Beach, which I'm certain that would be like on uh, the top of their priority. And then if you want to go to another Basel in Europe, where would you go? Would you go to Basel, or would you go to Art Basel Paris? I get a feeling that I think quite similar to collectors based in Asia, that if they want to go to Art Basel, maybe they go to the one in Paris. It's just a nicer city to be in, and the food is nicer. You can do a lot more things in Paris, and also if you want, you can do London and Paris back to back. And London is still, I mean, regardless of what's been reported in the news, London is still an attractive city for visitors from outside of Europe or even within Europe. So if you do London, Paris, then maybe it's more worthwhile in terms of your traveling experience. Having said that, I think the art the art on show. I don't know if you feel the same, but I feel that in terms of the quality of the art exhibited at art fair, I still feel that Basel I mean, the quality is still top notch.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be difficult for Basel as a city to compete with Paris as a city. And as the Paris edition develops and grows and the art reaches higher quality, you're going to continue to see more Americans shift and go to that fair rather than attending the fair in Switzerland. So you wrote a article as well focused on Asian collectors and their engagement or lack of engagement with Art Basel this year. Were Asian collectors visiting Basel this year? Are they in a similar boat as American collectors in terms of maybe not traveling to this fair moving forward? How do you see that playing out?
For collectors, one one anonymous quote I put in my story was was that the only good thing about Basel is that Thai restaurant, right? So and that is a general consensus about among Asian people on the food offerings in Basel. And I'm telling you, as an Asian person, that is that is an honest statement
Yeah.
from an it's also a sentiment shared by a lot of people. So to answer your question, I think from collector's perspective, it really depends on what you're looking for. And I think if you were going there just to be in the art world, but you're not actually working in the art industry, and but you want to experience Basel. So if you have been there, done that, then this you don't really need to go there. I'm considering like how you can buy art like basically anytime from anywhere. And again, if there's Art Basel Paris on the horizon, then they would I think they would choose to go to Art Basel Paris and then do London before. So they do like London Paris. I think that's also it makes better sense for long haul travel. And about the presence of Chinese collectors. There were Chinese collectors, and I could hear that on the ground. I mean, the languages that people were speaking, and I noticed there's a noticeable younger crowd, newer faces whom I'm not familiar with. Actually, I saw them first in Zurich, and then I encountered some in Basel. The number is not great, but at least there are some like, younger faces, and there are also new faces. Quite a few first timers from Korea, Taiwan, that I know about, and I guess to Asian collectors, so they have experienced Art Basel Hong Kong, and if they're new to the scene and they're still finding their way, in the art collecting world, and I think it's a must to experience Art Basel at least once. So I think this was the year that it just so happened that quite a number of them were there. Um, and for art dealers, I think they need to be very strategic about what to bring, which fair to attend, just to make sure that their budget is well spent. And as we all know, the economy is challenging, and galleries, they need to be cautious about like which fair to participate and how to strategize the fair appearances. So you can't go to every single fair; it's just not possible. And I think to some gallerists, having a presence in Basel is important. And so there's still like quite a number of them want to make a presence, like take part in, apply for Art Basel this year or Lister, and show like showing their artists, and hopefully to expand the collector base. And I've heard some of them did quite well, like managed to find European collectors for some Asian artists, which I could see that some of them they look really happy, but some struggled. So it really depends on like who you're bringing, what kind of work you're bringing, and what price points they are.
So it's the end of June now. We've just wrapped up the first half of the year, if you can believe it. And with Art Basel behind us, where would you say the art market stands as we head into the summer break and the second half of the year?
After Basel, and then after what the London Auction Week is still going on, and but the Sotheby's had its evening sale last week. No, last night, sorry. And so it felt like, I mean, people are buying art, and I think some collectors are still very active, but again, I think this is an adjustment. So, and it's not a short term kind of adjustment. It felt like something that's going to take a while to settle in, especially for the new generation of collectors to find their way. I feel that this is what they are. What they're exploring right now, and so I'm more positive. I mean, amid all the contraction and all those uncertainties, I feel that new collectors and younger people who are participating in the art world, um, I I feel that there should be something new, something exciting to appear in the second half of the year.
Yeah, it should be a really interesting second half of the year. Vivienne, thanks so much again for coming onto the podcast and helping us recap Art Basel 2025. We really appreciate your perspective, and if our listeners don't already, we definitely recommend they check out all of your writing and Artnet news. And I know you're also on social media. Where can we find you there?
Oh, Instagram, Miss Vivienne Chow.
Perfect. Thanks so much again, Vivienne. Have a great summer.
Thank you so much, Adam.